Good afternoon, you're watching Dialed In. I'm Alex Cologne, this is Sascha Segan, and this is PC Mac's weekly show all about mobile phones and technology. We're going to talk about some news that's going on. We're going to show you some of the things that we're working on, including this pair of sneakers. I'll get to those in a moment. If you have questions about anything that we're talking about, that we're showing, and you're watching this on Facebook Live, feel free to leave a comment. Our Social Pete, who is reading the comments, will read them out to us. We'll do our best to answer you. If you're watching this later on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. And let's start with the pink elephant on the table.
Yes.
And it's a pair of, it says T-Mobile Sidekicks right on the side.
Yeah, it's a pair of branded T-Mobile pink Converse, isn't it?
What are these? Did you buy them?
God, no. So every year T-Mobile does a April Fool's joke, and last year it was those giant fuzzy pink hoodies.
I remember.
Yeah, and this year...
Actually, no, it was a onesie.
Oh, it was a onesie,
Yeah.
right. It wasn't a hoodie, it was a onesie. It had a hood.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year, it is T-Mobile sneakers, and the joke is that they are T-Mobile Sidekicks because the Sidekick was a great brand of the mid-aughts for T-Mobile, and people do fondly remember it. And the sneakers come with this flyer proclaiming that the sneakers have a lot of technology features in them. Of course, they have no technology features, they're just sneakers. And T-Mobile is selling them for $65.
Right, so, you can actually buy these.
Yes. Who would want to wear them?
Well, that's not even my question is, is this actually an April Fool's joke then? All they've done is send you a retail product that you can buy, just like they did with phones.
The April Fool's joke, in theory, was that they were supposed to be shoe phones. Okay, the April Fool's joke was that I was supposed to be able to connect to the VoLTE network using the treads of the, it's multiple massive MIMO antennas here.
Right.
Whatever. Not much of a joke. They really just want people to walk around with the T-Mobile brand on their feet. And I don't know how many people are going to do that. They're nice shoes, but this is some aggressive branding.
I think that's probably all as much as we need to talk about these shoes.
Shoes.
All right, let's move on to our next topic. This is a bigger one that probably you've been hearing about the last
A little more
few days.
serious.
A bit more serious,
I wish it was an April Fool's joke, actually.
Yeah, and so clearly I'm talking about Facebook.
Yes.
So we've been talking about Facebook for a while, but definitely in the last week, things have really reached a fever pitch.
Yes, and oh, did our stream just get cut off? Guys, they cut our stream off. What do you? Just joking. That was my April Fool's joke, but also, Facebook clearly controls our lives in scary ways, as you are all on Facebook watching us. We are on Facebook broadcasting to you, and if Facebook doesn't like what we're saying, then our stream will be cut off. There's been this big Facebook controversy over the past week, and one of the things that came out was that specifically if you installed Facebook Messenger on Android and gave it permissions to access your call log and your text messages anytime starting in 2015, it's been scraping your call and text metadata ever since then.
So what exactly does that mean? If I gave it permission, which I probably did when I first signed up.
Because when you sign up for Facebook Messenger on Android, a picture of this robot full of love comes up, and it says, do you want to give the names of your friends to the love robot so that you can have more love and embrace your friends more closely, or do you want to say no and be a misanthrope who lives in a cave?
I assume that I myself and many other people chose to go with the love robot.
Right.
What does that mean for us?
What that means is that Facebook has been collecting the times, dates, and recipients, but not the content of the messages, for every text message and every phone call you have made on that phone since you did that installation.
And what does this sort of data allow it to do?
It allows Facebook to more firmly connect its network, its idea of who your network is. It lets Facebook, for instance, some of those creepier friend suggestions that you see pop up on Facebook sometimes, when they suggest someone, it turns out you know. It may be because you called someone who also had Facebook installed on their phone, and they called that person.
Right.
And then that all goes into Facebook's database, and it all knits together like a fuzzy hat of Facebookness. And then they figure out things about you that you really never intended them to know.
So what's bad about this?
What's bad about that is that Facebook is using this global knowledge of you to psychologically control you and sell you things in a very, very powerful way. And we all thought it was fine when Facebook was just trying to sell us products, okay? When Facebook's knowledge of where we lived and who we texted and who the friends of our friends were and who we called all the time, when that was just used to sell us, you know, cell phones or magazine subscriptions. But over the past couple of years, it became clear that it's also being used to divide society and make people hate each other and elect divisive leaders by bad actors who want to foment chaos and dissension. And so they are using this power of Facebook. And so the question is, do we want to keep giving Facebook this power, given that Facebook has shown no ability to not let it get into the wrong hands?
So is there a way around this? If we're currently using these things, can we turn it off?
Yes. So you don't have to uninstall Messenger. If you are on Android, you can just go into Settings, Apps, look under the Facebook Messenger entry in Apps. You should see the permissions that Facebook Messenger has and the permissions that Facebook has. Facebook, for instance, for me, just has camera, microphone, and storage. And that means that I can record things, and I can record images and videos to go on Facebook, but it's not capturing my location or who I'm calling, for instance. I'm just giving it a little less information about me.
And by doing that, all we're really going to lose is a friend suggestion of a friend of a friend of a friend who we might have walked by one day on the street. Exactly.
And hopefully, I mean, what I'm hoping is that then the messages that these bad actors try to prey on us with become just a little bit less targeted, and they become just a little bit less targeted enough that our minds kick in and we're like, this is kind of weird. That something's a little off about these bad ads, and finally our critical faculties start coming into play. It's not, they don't fool us as easily.
So we will have, we should have, if we don't already, an article up on the site about how to turn those settings off. So let's move on to our next, actually, it looks like we have a question.
How does GDPR factor into this?
I am not an expert on GDPR. GDPR is a European law, and as someone who is in the US, I have not been paying comprehensive attention to it. GDPR, on Facebook, for instance, GDPR is probably going to be hived off so that Americans are not, it doesn't affect Americans as much. But from what I understand of GDPR, GDPR is more about making you aware of and asking permission for things like these, all of these data collection practices. But it doesn't stop companies from shooting requests at you very fast and making them look very compelling, like the Love Robot. It's not going to stop the Love Robot. You just have to be more critical of the Love Robot.
We have to be less loving.
Or more loving of actual people and less loving of robots.
Right, I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. So Apple just released iOS 11.3 at the tail end of last week.
Yeah, it came out with the new iPads.
And so we have it here. There are some new things in it. There are 4 new Animoji, for instance.
Yes.
I believe you could demo those for us.
Yeah, we have it set up to demo. So there are 4 new Animoji, and let me see if I can get them going here. Oh, here we are.
So this one is a lion.
So yeah, this guy here, if you look, can I scroll all the way up? Yes, I can. Okay, so I'm doing this on our iPhone 10, and you see the lion here. He's one of, there are now 16 Animoji, you can see here. We have a lion. Rawr. We have a dragon, kind of a Chinese dragon, very festive dragon. Not really that threatening a dragon, more of a party dragon, Party dragon. We have a skull for the more gothic among us. We've got some pretty good eyebrows. Skulls don't do that. And we have a bear, and the bear can be, the thing is, the bear looks initially cute until he opens his eyes and he has these big fangs. And then you're like, oh, yeah, the bear's like Facebook. See? Like first you're like, ooh, cute bear, I'm gonna pet it. And then it goes, ah, and it eats all your personal data.
I'm just confused where the tiger is, because there's a lion and a bear.
Yeah, maybe it's in iOS 11.4.
Or maybe no one at Apple has ever seen The Wizard of Oz.
I doubt that. I doubt that. So other new features in iOS 11.3 include a power management system in the battery settings, which tells you if your battery is running down and you need battery replacement. Music videos in Apple Music, video clips in Apple News, easier ways to make HomeKit devices, and something I'm very excited about, which is the support for vertical surfaces in ARKit. And now, up until now, ARKit, which is Apple's augmented reality platform, only worked with floors.
Right.
Now you can do walls too, and that is a big, big step forward for AR, and it makes the ARKit applications, it's going to make them much more realistic.
So for instance, whereas before, if you were using the IKEA app, you'd be able to place a couch on your floor. Now you could put artwork on the walls?
Yeah, and in fact, the demo app that Apple showed me, which was really striking, was an educational app which has artwork from famous art galleries. And it puts the artwork virtually on the wall of your classroom or your home, and it lets you walk around the painting, zoom into parts of it, get expert commentary on the part you're looking at. It's really a pretty cool virtual museum experience.
Cool. So yeah, iOS 11.3 is out now. If it hasn't already been pushed to your phone, you could go to Settings, General Software Update, and trigger it manually.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's move on to OnePlus, and they've also been in the news a little bit because there's been some controversy about the forthcoming OnePlus 6. Now, explain to me how we could have controversy about a phone that hasn't yet been announced.
Have you been paying attention to iPhones throughout history?
That's true.
Yeah, it's just the reason. Okay, so there's controversy when people are passionate, and OnePlus has a really, really passionate fan base. I would say I would say of all the Android manufacturers, OnePlus fans are probably the most passionate. I would say they are. Yeah, I would say they are more passionate than Google fans. So OnePlus won our Reader's Choice Award a couple of weeks ago as the most loved smartphone, basically. And that's because of the passion of these fans answering our questionnaire and saying we love our OnePlus phones. And that came up, and then ever since then, my Twitter mentions have been flooded with obsessive OnePlus fans who are like in crazed rage about the possibility that the OnePlus 6 might have a screen notch.
And why are they upset about the notch?
So it took me a while to figure that out because the level of anger about it was wildly disproportionate to any possible cause. And I think it really has to do with identity. And it has to do with the fact that OnePlus does have such a community and such an identity. And the OnePlus fans feel that by using a notched screen, OnePlus is in some way selling out specifically to Apple.
Now, I realize a lot of people are connecting Apple with the notched screen, but they weren't the first to notch the screen.
No, Essential had the first notched screen. And that phone didn't succeed.
No, I mean, granted, people aren't talking about that because that phone only sold, what, a few thousand units?
But it was actually a relatively high-profile phone for its moment. It's just it's just the reflexive Apple hate machine, you know, the Apple love-hate machine in action. But one of the OnePlus founders, Carl Pei, did an interview with The Verge where he talked about that, and there's been some other kind of official commentary about the screen. And we've been seeing more approaches to the notched screen on Android smartphones recently. For instance, the Huawei P20 has one, and it has a rectangular screen mode with just the status information in the notch, if you want that. The LG G7 is going to do it. So I think that the people who are just crazed that this somehow like sells out their identity and turns them into Apple people just need to lose that. Need to relax about that. And a lot of other OnePlus stuff actually came out over the past week too.
Oh, and what's that?
Yeah. So we have some initial specs. They confirmed a Snapdragon 845, 8 gigs of RAM and 256 storage in at least one model.
So those are top of the line specs.
Top of the line. It will have a headphone jack. That'll make a lot of people happy. See, they're not copying Apple. If they were slavishly copying Apple, they would have no headphone jack, but the headphone jack is there. They also just put out a blog post about their philosophy of burdenless user experience, which seems to mean, at least initially, making the phones really fast over time. And this is something that I think is going to speak to a lot of Android fans. The idea that even if you've had a phone for a year or two, it's not going to slow down.
Right.
And I think that's something a lot of Android fans want. One of the questions I have for them is, what can they do in terms of power management to make a burdenless user experience? Can they create a situation where the battery life feels satisfactory, and it feels satisfactory even after a year or two?
Right.
Just as much as speed, I feel like people want that as well.
And is there any word on when we are actually going to hear an official announcement?
I have not heard any hard dates, but I mean, stuff is starting to leak out. And that makes me feel like it has to be soon, right? Like the OnePlus 5T is no longer available in the US.
Right, yeah.
And that means that, obviously OnePlus has not backed out of the US market. So obviously they have a new phone coming up pretty soon. Otherwise, I would think they would have made some more 5Ts to fill the gap.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So maybe we'll hear something about it in the near future.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for it.
So now we have a phone that we have actually reviewed. This is the Honor View 10. Honor, also known as part of Huawei. This is a $499 phone. It has an 18 by 9 aspect ratio, 1080p 6-inch screen. Micro SD slot. There's an IR blaster, so you could use it as a remote.
6 gig, 128, Kirin 970 processor. Dual cameras on the back, 16 meg and 20 meg, 13 meg camera on the front. What I think is funny is that the OnePlus 5T has just fallen out of the market,
right.
And this sort of takes its place right now. If you can't wait for the OnePlus 6, then the Honor View 10 is really taking that $500 high-quality unlocked spot in the US market right now.
Actually, yeah, this is sort of an interesting peek into our editorial process. While we were reviewing this phone, we actually had slightly different conclusions in the beginning, but then we found out that the OnePlus 5T was gone, so we were no longer going to use it as a comparison.
Right.
So yeah, because when we're writing a review, we try to compare it to the phone that, something that's closest in price, that's closest in specs, something that you might actually, buy one or the other. So its biggest competition was basically knocked out.
Yeah. So it's the Honor View 10 for the moment in the US stands alone, and it stands alone pretty nicely too. I mean, all around we found that it does not quite have the performance of a Galaxy S9,
right?
But the performance is good enough for everything you want to do except heavy gaming. That was where it fell down. It fell down on frame rates in really graphically heavy games like Grand Theft Auto, but photography, quite good. I think AJ thought the photos were a little overprocessed,
right?
But we complained about that with the Galaxy S9 too. The screen is really nice deep colors for an IPS screen. Once again, is it OLED? No. Is it good enough? Yes. Has that 6 gigs, 128 gigs micro SD slot. AT&T T-Mobile compatible. All in all, if you're the kind of person who is paying for a phone up front and you don't have the $720, $750 for a flagship phone, this gets you, can I say 90% of the way there?
Yeah.
I mean, 90% of the way there
math.
for 60% of the price.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice design. I mean, it's pretty minimal, but it's attractive.
Yeah, and it's a little frustrating because both this and the Huawei P20, very, very good phones. I mean, what Huawei is doing with that 40 megapixel camera situation on the back of the P20 is amazing and kind of stands alone in the global market. And because of politics, we are not getting broad distribution of these devices.
Right, so the only way that you can buy this, and probably the only way you'll be able to buy a P20, is unlocked and online.
Yeah, and you can get these from High Honor. You can get them from Honor's website. That's where you probably should get them from. They're AT&T and T-Mobile compatible. One of my other quibbles is that they don't have some of the more arcane AT&T and T-Mobile frequency bands, so their reception won't be quite up to Galaxy S9 levels. But once again, you're paying 60% of the price.
So let me ask you though, because of all this, all the Huawei news that's happening, should buyers be afraid of Huawei?
I don't think so. I think what's happening is politics. I think what's happening is is trade wars, essentially. No one has given any hard evidence that Huawei is spying on us. They've just given these kinds of rumors and penumbras. And, you know, day one that there is evidence, I will turn around my opinion. But even when put on the spot in front of Congress, no one was willing to give any evidence. And I have a lot of trouble believing claims that don't have evidence. I mean, I'm a hands-on testing kind of person.
Right. All right, so don't be afraid. If you want a $500 phone with pretty much top-of-the-line specs,
Yep.
this is a great option.
Yeah, although I have to say, I mean, if you're patient, let's see how much the OnePlus 6 costs.
That's true. How much was the 5T?
How much was the 5T? Was that $479 or $529?
But either way, right in there.
Right in there, and I think a Snapdragon 845 with 8 gigs of memory is going to overpower this guy.
Oh, yeah.
The question is, can OnePlus keep that price down to keep it competitive, or are they going to be up in, you know, up in the 600s with the LG G7?
I think things get really confusing, actually, if that happens.
Things get really confusing if that happens, absolutely.
All right, so any questions out there?
No, we're all set.
Okay.
All right, so this is the Honor View 10. We gave it 4 stars. Thanks for tuning in to Dialed In, and we'll be back again next week with a new show.